I was 20, 2 years out of high school, with dreams of going to college that had been delayed because Clara claimed we couldn't afford it. One fateful evening, I was in my room reading when my dad returned from work. Clara was crying, and when he asked what was wrong, Clara and Ethan said I had tried to suffocate Ethan while he was taking a nap. My dad didn't waste any time hearing my side of the story. I was kicked out.
It's time you started fending for yourself, Kiara. You are a threat to our lives.
She's right. You're old enough to stand on your own. Get out.
I looked at my father, hoping for a glimmer of the man who once tucked me into bed and told me bedtime stories. But his face was cold and unmoved.
Pack your things.
I spent the night crying as I stuffed my few belongings into a worn-out suitcase. I walked out of the house without a word. My father didn't even say goodbye. The streets were harsh, and I quickly learned that survival wasn't easy. When my mother died, I was 15 years old. The doctors had said it was pneumonia. Her death was too fast, too cruel, and it left my father and me in pieces. The house felt like a tomb without her. My father became a shadow of himself, throwing all his energy into work and leaving me alone most of the time. And then Clara appeared. She was my mom's best friend, and at first, her presence was like a balm on our broken lives. She brought home-cooked meals, helped with laundry, and sat by my bed at night, telling me stories about the adventures she and my mom had when they were young.
Your mom was so brave, Layla, just like you.
Her words made me feel special, and for a while, I believed she truly cared. She spent more and more time at our house, laughing with Dad over dinner, organizing things, and making herself indispensable. And then, one evening, she stayed so late that I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, her coat was hanging in the hallway. She never really left after that. A few weeks later, I got to know that she was already dating my dad. Although it confused me how they could do that to my mom, I didn't want to seem like I was overreacting, and she was still nice to me, so I let them be. The wedding happened 6 months later. It was small, just a few close friends and family. Clara looked stunning in her dress, and my dad looked happier than he had in months. I tried to be happy for them. Does this mean I'll have a new mom?
Of course, sweetie. I'll always take care of you.
At first, she kept her word. Clara made pancakes on Saturdays, helped me pick out dresses for school events, and even bought me a kitten for my birthday. She was kind and attentive, and I started to think that maybe things would be okay. But then she got pregnant. The change was subtle at first. Clara started complaining about being tired and snapping at me over small things. One day, I accidentally left my shoes in the hallway, and she tripped over them.
Are you trying to kill me and this baby?
Her anger was sharp and sudden, and before I could apologize, she slapped me across the face.
Clean up your mess, you useless brat.
I ran to my room in tears. I thought about telling my dad, but by the time he got home, Clara had already spun her version of the story.
Kiara was so careless today, and I'm just so stressed.
My dad hugged and apologized to her, but when he turned to me, I almost burst into tears at the disappointment on his face.
You need to be more thoughtful, Kiara. Clara's under a lot of pressure. Be sensible and behave yourself.
I nodded, unable to say anything. The cruelty escalated as her belly grew. Clara made me her personal maid, assigning me endless chores and berating me for every mistake. One evening, I accidentally spilled a glass of milk on the kitchen counter.
You can't do anything right. You're so useless.
She grabbed my arm and dragged me outside, locking the door behind me.
Sleep out here. Maybe then you'll learn to be more careful.
The night was cold, and I curled up on the porch, shivering until morning. When my dad even returned home, he didn't bring me in, because Clara instructed him to ignore me. He did, saying Clara was the only one who could teach me a lesson. Clara was a master manipulator. She lied to Dad constantly, painting me as a disobedient and ungrateful child.
She refuses to help me, and she talks back all the time.
Dad believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was pregnant with his son, the future heir to his wealth.
When this boy is born, everything will change.
She said it often, usually with a smug smile. One evening, I was doing my homework in the living room when Clara entered with a pile of laundry.
You've been sitting here all day doing nothing. Take this upstairs and fold it.
I'm almost done with my homework. I'll fold it. Once I'm done, please. She grabbed my notebook and ripped out the pages, scattering them across the floor.
Your homework can go to hell for all I care. Do as I say.
I gathered the torn pages, biting my lip to keep from crying. The worst was when she made me miss my school's talent show. I had been practicing for weeks, excited to perform a piano piece that my mom used to love. The night before the show, Clara claimed she wasn't feeling well and demanded that I stay home to take care of her.
You'll have plenty of chances to perform in the future. This is more important.
I felt so sad, knowing that all my preparation was in vain, just because Clara didn't want me to attend the showcase for reasons best known to her. Once she started getting closer to delivery, everything revolved around the baby. She even started redecorating my room, claiming it would eventually belong to him.
You're a girl, Kiara. You'll get married someday and leave this house. When you do, it will belong to my son and I.
I don't care. I wouldn't want to remain here forever, either. That was the first time I talked back to her. She didn't respond that day, but 3 days later, she got her revenge. Clara accused me of stealing money from her purse. I hadn't touched it, but Clara's crocodile tears convinced Dad otherwise.
I'm so disappointed in you, Layla.
He grounded me for 2 weeks, forbidding me from even leaving the house. When Clara went into labor, I felt relieved that the pregnancy was over, and dread for what would come next. Dad rushed her to the hospital, leaving me alone for hours. When they returned, Clara was holding her son in her arms, her face glowing with pride.
Meet your little brother, Kiara.
I forced a smile, and as Clara shot me a triumphant glare, I knew my life was about to get even harder. Life after Clara gave birth to her son became unbearable. Ethan was the center of attention. Every coo and giggle of his brought a smile to my father's face, while I, his firstborn, had become a mere shadow in my own home. Clara made sure of it. She doted on Ethan, showering him with affection, while treating me like a stranger. As Ethan grew older, she poisoned his mind against me.
Don't listen to Kiara. Don't go near her. Stay far away from her. She's dangerous and poisonous. She's jealous of you and would do anything to get rid of you.
Of course, the boy had obeyed. He avoided me like a plague. I didn't blame him. His mother was the root of everything. By the time Ethan was 6, he would mimic Clara's cruel remarks, calling me names and laughing when I tried to correct him.
You're not my real sister. Mom said so. You're going to leave soon because nobody wants you. Mom says you're forcing yourself on us.
Clara encouraged his behavior, and my father? He said nothing. He was a spectator in his own house, a man so enamored with his new family that he barely acknowledged my existence anymore. The day they kicked me out is etched in my memory like a scar. I was 20, 2 years out of high school, with dreams of going to college that had been delayed because Clara claimed we couldn't afford it. One fateful evening, I was in my room reading when my dad returned from work. Clara was crying, and when he asked what was wrong, Clara and Ethan said I had tried to suffocate Ethan while he was taking a nap. My dad didn't waste any time hearing my side of the story. I was kicked out.
It's time you started fending for yourself, Kiara. You are a threat to our lives.
She's right. You're old enough to stand on your own. Get out.
I looked at my father, hoping for a glimmer of the man who once tucked me into bed and told me bedtime stories. But his face was cold and unmoved.
Pack your things.
I spent the night crying as I stuffed my few belongings into a worn-out suitcase. I walked out of the house without a word. My father didn't even say goodbye. The streets were harsh, and I quickly learned that survival wasn't easy. I wandered aimlessly, trying to figure out my next step, until I ran into an old classmate, Tasha.
Kiara? Is that you? Oh my God! What happened?
Her concern brought tears to my eyes, and I poured out my story. Tasha didn't hesitate. She took me in, offering me a place to stay and helping me find a job. With her support, I got a job as an assistant at a fashion boutique. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. A few months later, an opportunity came up in another country. The boutique owner recommended me for a position in a larger store, and I jumped at the chance. I said goodbye to Tasha and boarded a plane. I was going to start a fresh life. The new city was overwhelming at first, but I adapted quickly. I worked tirelessly, saving every penny I could. After a year, I had enough money to enroll in a fashion academy. The academy was a turning point. I discovered a passion for designing clothes, and my instructors saw potential in me.
You have an eye for detail, Kiara. Don't waste it.
By the time I was 23, I was designing for local fashion shows. My hard work paid off, and my name started gaining recognition in the industry. At 25, I had become a well-known fashion designer. My designs were featured in international magazines, and my bank account was proof of how far I'd come. Tasha and I remained best friends. She became the family Clara took from me. When I returned to my home country to visit Tasha, I had no idea how much my life was about to change again.
Have you heard about Clara? Your stepmom.
No. What happened?
Well, Clara killed your father.
The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Almost everyone in the city knew about it. Tasha explained that Clara had been desperate to claim all of my father's wealth, but things hadn't gone as planned.
Turns out your father was drowning in debt. He took out loans and used all his properties as collateral.
I was stunned.
She was thrown out of the house with her son after he died.
Apparently, after they got thrown out, Clara and Ethan were squatting with her relative. But the story didn't end there. Clara began claiming that my father's ghost was haunting her. She grew increasingly paranoid until she confessed everything. According to what Tasha told me, Clara had told everyone who cared to hear that she killed my father. She confessed because his ghost wouldn't leave her alone until she told the truth. Her confession led to her arrest. She was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder. As for Ethan, he spiraled out of control. Without Clara to guide him, he turned to alcohol and drugs, eventually ending up on the streets. I couldn't believe my ears. So much misfortune had befalling them. I didn't feel bad, though. They had made my life a living hell, and now they were reaping what they had sown. I had built a life for myself, one that they could never touch. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.